G'day groovers, rockers, and in between. This is Vinyl Vibes. I'm your host, Jack Hodgins. Today we're talking with folk music icon Peggy Seeger. Peggy grew up during the 1940s in a musical family. Among the artists she grew up listening to was bluesman Leadbelly, who Peggy met as a girl in 1942. She would record her first album in 1955, and she would go on to write songs such as I'm Gonna Be an Engineer and inspire Ewan MacColl to write The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. More recently, she's released a new album in 2021 called First Farewell and is currently playing on her tour of the same name. G'day Peggy, and welcome to Vinyl Vibes.
Oh, I love hearing the Australian accent. Well, it's more than Australian accent. Australian, it's an actual language, and you have so many interesting words, and the language is so live, and the humor is so wonderful. If it wasn't for the spiders and the snakes, I'd move down there.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, do you have any favourite Australian sayings then, Peggy? Is there anything that you like, especially about the Australian language, so you say? Yeah.
Way back when the North America was formed, there were people who tried purposefully to make themselves different from the English. That's why they have so many different spellings, which were then carried to Australia. But the fact that Australia was formed by European people taking over what land was already belonging to the indigenous Australians, the people who came over from Europe, so many of them were so-called rejects from the 1800s that came to Australia, were some of our best people, our most adventurous and innovative people. So many different languages have come to Australia. It's such an interesting place linguistically. I think it's because it was so recently formed and with so many different nationalities there that just mixed in. I would live there. It's a wonderful place.
I read your book, and it's a fantastically written book, and it sounds like you kind of say in your book you were a close family, you were held together by music and your parents' love for each other, and it sounds like you had a really, really nice childhood.
It was a unique childhood. If I myself am unique in any way as a musician and songwriter, it's because from the earliest days that I can remember, I was drenched in North American, mostly in English, folk songs that were collected by Alan Lomax and by George Corson and Sidney Cowell. My mother transcribed those songs that were collected in the 30s and 40s so that she could put them in a book with Alan Lomax. So from my very early days, she was transcribing those songs daily while we were playing in the corner, my brother and my sister. And we would have been about we were 2 years apart. So I was 8 when we moved away from there. So my brother would have been 10 and I'm 8 and my sister's 6. But from the time it was 6, 4, and 2, she was playing the most extraordinary songs and trying to transcribe them onto music staff. So I would be hearing songs like, I've been a bad, bad girl, wouldn't treat nobody right, sung by a prisoner in the Rayford State Penitentiary who'd been put in there for life, murdering her lover. Songs by Aunt Molly Jackson, the miner's wife. As I was walking down Peacock Street, no clothes on my back, no shoes on my feet. I was drenched in class history, the woes and the ambitions and the thwarted dreams of Eastern and some Southern working class life. Now that was one side when I said that if I was in any way unique. The other side was classical music. So that's one end of the music spectrum made by the working class, and the other end made for the elite. My mother was a modernist composer. My father was a professor of music. My mother was a brilliant pianist who played classical music every night when we were falling asleep. So I got black prisoners in the Rayford State Penitentiary in Florida in the day, and I got Mozart at night. Extraordinary. What's missing in me is the pop music in between, and a lot of contemporary blues, the Billie Holiday and the Ella Fitzgerald, and I missed a lot of that. So that's what feeds into my songwriting. But most of what I sing in the way of folk music is from the Eastern white European tradition in English.
It's interesting looking back on those days from in the modern era, looking back on those days, because we're talking like music was kind of heard by, unless you were playing it like on the piano or live off the sheet music, you were kind of listening to it on probably 78s in those days and the radio. I mean, do you think it was important in having that scarcity in how music was listened to? Because now it's at your fingertips on Spotify and, things like that. I mean, yeah, do you think that was important to the musical experience, that it wasn't just at your fingertips kind of thing? Yeah.
It would astound you the number of formats that I've been through in my lifetime. I think I list them in the book at one point, and there's about 10 different formats that you could hear music on, that you could actually get your fingers on, like CDs and like that, but the first ones that I heard on were 16-inch aluminium records from the Library of Congress. I even heard cardboard records during the war, the Second World War.
Wow, yeah.
I'm specifying that it's the Second World War, not the first. Everything was physical. You held it in your hand. When we went to vinyls, you could break them easily. I still have upstairs some old vinyls from the 1940s and 50s. You took it out of its sleeve in the album set with reverence. You handled it carefully. You dusted it before you put the needle on. You didn't put dull needles onto it. And with the aluminium records, we played those, they were played with thorn needles taken from an actual cactus or rose. And if it got dull, you put it into a little sandpapering machine and whizzed it around, and that sharpened it again, and you put it onto the record. So I'm a dinosaur, and what I remember are dinosaur memories. And I will say that I am worried, very worried, that we're putting our entire lives out into a cloud. When the energy system, when the internet goes down, as it will, there is no way it can be kept up when whole towns like the one in Libya or Morocco, it's Libya, are just being washed away. And everything, the way that we record our lives and keep our history will just disappear. Whereas if you have a record and a little bit of electricity, you can play it. And we're banking on the computer. All of our work is on the computer. It can vanish in a moment. And that does worry me. Whereas the formats that I learned, the first, I remember Leadbelly on a record before I actually met him when I was 6. I was only 6. I didn't really meet him. I went to the door, and there he was, a very big, very black, very well-dressed man who had come with Alan Lomax and his father to visit my mother in Washington, D.C. Now, that would have been in 1942, and Leadbelly had been sprung out of prison by John Lomax because he was a cultural icon at the time, although we didn't call them icons. And so he took Leadbelly out on tour, and Leadbelly sang to people the songs that he sang in prison and the songs that he made up. I remember seeing Leadbelly. I don't have a lot of memories of him, maybe one or two, one meeting him at the door, and the other seeing him and my brother Pete singing in a boxing ring. I was in the audience, and the stage was a boxing ring in Washington, D.C. Yeah, that was before Pete went into the army, probably.
I think those recordings are special because they were authentic, and they were sung about by people that had gone through all the things they described in those songs. And I mean, what I think we're losing today, especially with, I'm not sure if you're keeping up to date with like the AI that's happening in music at the moment, but that seems to be something that's going to kind of kill that authenticity if we're not having people make music themselves, and it's not going to, yeah. What do you think about that, Peggy? Yeah.
On the whole, there are more people consuming music and not making it themselves than people who are making it themselves. Don't know if I've heard any AI popular songs. I might not be able to tell the difference. I know you can do amazing things with those setups that you guys who have these big ranks of faders and sliders and all these things. I know you can actually create music on those. We've already got partial AI when you sit in front of your music desk, because both of my sons have them. I think we have to encourage people to make their own music, and that's partially what I've been about in big part of the folk revival. because folk songs were made by people who made the songs themselves. There are still people who do this, and then they jolly it up with all kinds of effects and things from the board. That's semi-AI. But the folk revival, of which I've been part for so long, has been chiefly people standing up on a stage with their guitar singing by themselves, or with their banjo or their concertina or accordion or whatever, without a whole lot of extra help from machines. I think people will always make music as long as we don't have music from. If we didn't have so much feeding into our earbuds, we'd probably make up more music ourselves.
I think too, I mean, if we've got machines making the music, it doesn't really allow people to be as creative because they're not making the sounds themselves. Would you say that there's some truth in that?
Yes, exactly. And they're not having music that they can repeat sung to them as by a person when they're children.
Yeah.
Mothers used to, I don't know if they still sing lullabies for their children, or whether they just put put the CD on or whatever it is. I know I sang to my children constantly, and I had songs sung to me constantly. I don't think mothers do that anymore. Part of the problem is so much of the pop music that is really popular doesn't seem to have something that you can sing all the way through yourself. You can join in with it and sing with it. I taught songwriting at Northeastern University in Boston for 2 years, about 10 or 15 years ago. And I had students, none of my students could actually sing a melody of one of the songs that they listened to all the time on their earbuds. I said, okay, you're listening to Radiohead or you're listening to so-and-so. Can you sing me the tune and the words? They could sing a snatch, but the tune didn't make sense to them. And they made up songs that had virtually no tune. The tune was you hardly memorized it at all. Yeah. So I think we're deprived of having songs that you could sing yourself, which you could in the 40s and 50s. Those songs, all those things, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Tennessee Waltz and all of the Patsy Cline songs and the Margaret Whiting songs and all those. You could sing them yourself all the way through. But you can't do that with an awful lot of the pop music now, because first of all, there's an awful lot of instrumental racket behind it, and you can't even hear the words.
Yeah.
Many of my students who liked the pop music, they didn't know what the words were in the songs they liked. They loved the guitar riff and they loved the sequence of chords, but they couldn't tell you what the song was about.
I mean, you mentioned the songs of the 40s and 50s, and how I think there's a simplicity to those songs. I think that's what maybe made them so great. I mean, listening to your first album, I think that's evident as well, because it sounds like it was just you and a guitar and a microphone. I mean, do you think that was part of the greatness of those old records?
Is that my very first one, you mean?
Songs of Courting and Complain, I think it's called. Oh
my God, you've listened to that. You're too young to have listened to that. I'm flattered, unless you're a young dinosaur. That was me, just with a guitar, and occasionally with my friend Clark Weissman. Yeah, that's all we knew how to do. And I never had a band to play with, although on Everything Changes, my son Callum got a band together, and I loved that. I loved working with them, but they were actual people. It wasn't made up on a machine, and we didn't doctor anything. So but that's one of the strengths, and we might want to talk about that at some point. Almost all of what I do or write is based on my history of folk and classical. I love the classical harmonic system, and a lot of the folk music is based on that, the guitar chords and everything. But the words and music of folk music, Northeastern Anglo-American folk music, which is what I do, it has a seeming simplicity. It has a style of performance, and the songs have been honed by generations. They've taken out the unnecessary words, and they've been made up to sound almost as if it's speech set to music. So it appeals immediately. And people who hear them for the first time, like my Northeastern students, because I gave them a number of samples of songs to sing, to make their words to. I didn't allow them to write tunes, my pupils. I didn't. You cannot write a tune. I don't want you to.
Mm.
I want you to write to this tune, that tune, the other tune. And over the 2 years, I gave them 500 different samples of what I thought were good examples to set your words to. And they made wonderful words once they'd gotten a good tune. But I'm straying off the subject here, but basing my songwriting on folk song and why folk song has lasted so long, it has staying power, an attachment to language that is unbroken. That's why people like it, because it's as if they're singing something that they're saying.
1955, around that time, 1956, rock and roll kind of got started. I mean, coming from that folk background, that classical music background, what did you think of rock and roll when it first started? Yeah.
Well, a lot of that was based Elvis Presley. I don't know if he's termed rock and roll, is he? I guess he is. The names of the different kinds of music change so often, I don't know what they are. He based an awful lot of his songs on black music, and he based his singing style on a lot of black folk music. It was still very close. And I loved those songs in the 40s and 50s, the pop songs. I did, and I learned them and sang them.
Yeah.
And of course, there were parodies on them that we used to sing in school. You know, the song, "Take My Hand, I'm a Stranger in Paradise." We said, "Take my toe, I'm alone in RKO, sitting next to Marilyn Monroe," etc. You would make fun of them, but you could sing them. You could take pieces of them and sing them, which I'm not sure you can do with pop music now. Just take and you could make fun of the. We used to listen to Spike Jones. Have you heard a lot of Spike Jones?
I think I've heard the name. I don't think I've heard much of the music, but the name rings a bell. Yeah.
Jack, you must listen to it.
All right. Yeah.
You should listen to Chloe and Laura and the Dance of the Hours. He makes fun of the slushy, emotional songs of the 1940s and early 50s. He was absolutely fantastic. Really, listen to him. And he plays with pots and pans and song effects, and just makes fun of them.
Of course, I wanted to bring up too, I mean, of course, you've done a lot of activism in the feminist field, and I know in the 50s you weren't a feminist yet, but I wanted to kind of ask, like, what was it like being a woman in the 1950s in America? Like, and how was it different to today?
Well, I fitted very well into the stereotypes in America. I never really questioned the stereotype until I got involved in feminism in the late 70s. I didn't really, it just never impinged on me. It was just what it was. Even in my relationship with Ewan MacColl, there was a lot of stereotyping and gender role jobs in the house and things like that I just never questioned. So, but the thing is, being a female player of a long neck banjo in the 1950s was definitely unusual. It definitely was. I played a long neck banjo because Pete did, and I loved the long neck. I had one made specially for me in 1954 by Vega, and I still have it. I've traveled with it for 70 years, that one. It's a beautiful banjo. But I don't remember being discriminated against. Women were singers. Normally, women didn't play the instruments. That was the thing. You'd have a band of men, and then the woman would be up in the front singing. But I brought my own band with me, with the guitar and the banjo, and then I added the other four instruments, one by one. I don't remember through my whole musical life being discriminated because I was a woman.
Okay. Yeah.
I even worked when we did the radio ballads with the BBC. I had an entire band of male performers, male instrumentalists, and they were fabulous. They followed what I said to do, and they put up with my lack of knowing how to write a score. I never sang from sheet music. I didn't know how to write a score, so I made mistakes. But that band was wonderful, and I work with my sons we're three musicians. That's what we are. Not mother and daughter, mother and sons. So I, I think there was a lot of discrimination against women that I didn't feel applied to me. I'm only, when I read about it now, with the way they were treated, I'm not really qualified to speak about it. I can just say
Okay.
that I didn't feel it.
In terms of women being represented in music, have we come a long way since like the 50s in those regards? Do you think?
There are women bands now where the women drummers just go at it. Wow, women drummers in the 1950s would have been unheard of.
Mm, mm,
A woman playing a hefty bass guitar or even her own guitar wasn't known in the 30s
mm, mm,
and 40s and 50s. I don't remember that. I mean, in the folk bands like the Carter family, they definitely played, but not on the pop scene.
mm,
Not that I remember. As I say, I wasn't very much in touch with the pop scene. Not
mm.
really. I didn't know much about it. I had my favorites, the ones I really absolutely loved, and I followed them. Yeah.
An important part in your journey in becoming a feminist was the writing of your song "I'm Going to Be an Engineer," and I've been listening to that song and I love the lyrics to it. And I kind of was thinking, like, in terms of the lyrics, like, did they flow out of you pretty quickly? Like, did they happen pretty quickly, or like, did it take some time? Like, yeah, how did you go about that?
Well, I was in the middle of doing the accounts, and Ewan MacColl was upstairs writing the script for the theatrical show that we put on every year. And he came downstairs and he said, "This script needs a woman's song. So would you please write a woman's song?" I'm in the middle of doing the accounts, for God's sake, and I wasn't very pleased at that. But it happened to be the year of the woman, as I remember. You know, they have the year of the mouse and they have the year of the disabled, and I'm fond of saying that it nearly always runs concurrently with the always year of the men. Nobody ever mentions that. I dashed that song off literally in 2 hours. And the irony is I'd never wanted to be an engineer. I never wanted to be an engineer. I never even wanted to be a singer. I never wanted to be anything. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I just loved playing instruments and singing. But I wrote that. I don't know how it came about. I must have been doing some reading about it, I guess. But it got me immediately in hot water with the feminists. And I didn't know what feminists were when I wrote that song. I didn't know the term. I was married to a dyed-in-the-wool male. All of the things that he sang about and wanted to sing about were what men did with industry and whaling and fishing and hunting and war. And he sang a lot of those. And I idly sang a lot of American songs in which the women were property, they were victims, they were laughed at because they were a mother-in-law. They were murdered. They were left with a baby in their arms. It was an awful picture in American folk music of where women stood. I have a theory about that now because there are quite a number of American folk songs about women, adventurous women, and women who beat up their husbands, and women who left the men. And I think they were mostly collected by Sidney Cowell or by woman collectors. Most of the collectors in America were men. There's lots of songs that women would not sing for a male collector. There's some wonderful body songs. Yep. Women's body songs. Oh yes, there are. So I was a dyed-in-the-wool heterosexual member of a heterosexual relationship that didn't question my position. Here's me going and singing for a feminist get-together, gonna be an engineer. And when I finished it, they'd say, "Sing us another one." I didn't have one. I didn't have any other songs in which women were proud of being women. And in the work that I was doing with Ewan MacColl, I met so many skilled women in industry, skilled women in professions, and I never thought of writing songs for them. I didn't. We just wrote songs mostly about men. So that's what started me on feminism, was that song. I thought, geez, I better get my act together here. So I started writing women's songs. I chose the issues very carefully, and I've made 3 albums. One soft one, and then different, therefore equal, and then period pieces. And since then, I've written a number of songs for women and about women that haven't even been recorded.
Since discovering feminism in the 1970s, what changed in the way that you went about life after kind of delving into to feminism? Yeah.
Well, I started, it was about getting to be the time when Ewan MacColl started to be ill. He got his first heart attack in 1979. By then, I'd already been singing for a number of women's groups. In the 80s, I formed a women's group, but I started being known for the songs that I sang for women. As I wrote them, we put them into our concerts. And he was very proud of me for doing that. He was very pleased with it. There's a couple of ones that I wrote that he didn't like. One called Give 'Em an Inch, which I think you probably haven't heard. It's only about a minute and a half long. And I got the idea I get ideas from all over the place. And I got it from a cartoon in which the midwife is holding up the baby boy by its heels and looking at its little willy and saying, "Gosh, is this what gets him to run the world?" Ewan did not like that one at all. He didn't, because it makes fun of the penis. The spoiler, I won't give you the spoiler line, which comes at the very end. So I started writing shorter songs. And you've heard Everyone Knows, of course. That's on one of the albums. Everyone Knows You Can't Trust a Woman. I don't know if you remember that one. I think it's on Everything Changes. I'm not sure. I can't remember what's on what album. With my sons, it's a song about hormones, women's hormones and men's hormones, and my sons are singing barbershop quartet harmonies on it. It's quite funny.
Wow.
So if you write that one down, I'm trying to remember where it's recorded. I can't keep things straight in my head. I never could like that.
Yeah.
So, Gonna Be an Engineer has a lot of words, a lot of chords. It has quite a singing range, and yet a lot of women have picked it up. Now, it's important to note, if you look at the songs that I've written, is that I have no brand. Look at what I write and say, oh, that's a Peggy Seeger song, because I've written in so many different musical styles. I've written blues. I've written one that sounds like an Elizabethan love song. I've written sledgehammer female songs about the right to life, and you won't have heard that one either, about abortion. I've written very short songs. I've written very long songs. I've written songs that are made out of the words of other people, because that's a wonderful thing to do. So with Leonard Cohen or with Eric Bogle, you can more or less you can know what he's going to sound like and the kind of things that he's going to make. What I did with the album Different Therefore Equal, I decided to attack the different issues with different singing styles, writing styles. And some of them are very didactic. And some of them, there's a blues called You Don't Know How Lucky You Are. I don't know if you heard that one. You Don't Know How Lucky You Are, I think, is on Everything Changes.
I mean, I also wanted to bring up too your latest album, First Farewell. I did some research into it, and there were some songs on there that you'd written 10 years ago and that kind of thing. So it sounds like you were writing songs for the album for quite a little while.
Well, I wasn't writing that for an album. I sang. I wasn't even going to put it on the album, but I sang it to Callum, and he said that's got to go on the album. There's lots of songs I've written that aren't on any album because I didn't have access to anybody who was going to, and I didn't have the money as well to put it out and distribute it, because you can put an album out, but there's great trouble in distributing. And I've always had. I've always been on the fringe, even though I'm looked on as, quote, a legend, quote, an icon. I've never had a mass audience because people don't know what to expect from me. They have no idea. The Ballad of Springhill I wrote because I had nothing else to do. I was stuck in, it's in the book. I was stuck in France, unable to get into England. And it was 1958 in December. And I was stuck in France, and I was pregnant, and I was waiting for Ewan to come over and visit me from England. And I was watching on television the first televised mining disaster, which was in Nova Scotia.
Mm.
The songs just came right down. Some songs come right away. Some songs you have to sweat at. One of my best songs, which is called The Mother, had a tune that was meant for a political subject, but it didn't fit with the political subject. It's a lovely tune. And so I tried putting another text to it. That didn't work. And then another text, then another text. And people ask you what comes first, writing the tune or the words. Well, this tune had, I think, 4 or 5 different sets of words that didn't work. And then one day I'm coming out of the West Wickham swimming baths, and bang, there comes the text. As if it's just been sitting there, just waiting to land at the right time.
Yeah.
And I sang it to my partner at the time, Irene. She's still my partner, and she added a verse, although she doesn't write much songs herself. And it's a beautiful song. It's a very gentle ecological song. I'm writing quite a lot of ecological songs now because people are at different levels. People don't have their brand either, and people, as far as climate change, they can take a song at this level of activism, or this level, or this level, or this level. And The Mother is one that anybody can listen to and understand. It's gentle. It's like a lullaby for the earth as the earth falls asleep and we destroy it. People pick up a song that you've written and you can't figure out how is it that they pick that particular one up. Because it is so difficult to sing. It is this, because I've written some very difficult songs to reproduce. I wrote one called Reclaim the Night, about rape. It was Reclaim the Night was the slogan of women wanting to be able to walk at night without being afraid. It's called Reclaim the Night. That was the cry. 52% of the population is afraid of the other 48%. That's what it is now. I live in a street that to walk home alone at night, part of it is not even lit. I don't want to do that on my own, in my own town where I live, because I'm afraid of men. And so Reclaim the Night is virtually a credo which runs right through the areas of society at which, first of all, a woman is afraid of men, then a daughter is afraid of her father or her brother. Then it takes you right through to the economics, where women don't earn equal wages. That's economic rape. Then it takes you through it, and it's very, very literary. Though Eve was made from Adam's rib, 9 months he lay within her crib. How can a man of woman born thereafter use her sex with scorn? And though we bear the human race, to us is given but second place. And some men place us lower still by using us against our will. Now that's quite difficult to sing, and it has 6 verses. So what happens? This is marvelous. The Women's Million Women March in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago, in which 1 million women turned up in front of the Capitol buildings to object to the violence of men. And right in the front of one of the sections of this are 10 women linked together, singing every verse of this song in unison. Now, Americans are given to harmony, and harmony immediately weakens a group song as well as strengthening it in another way. It can strengthen community, but it sometimes weakens the song because you don't know what the tune is. So there were these 10 women, young women, just marching along, holding on to each other's elbows, singing Reclaim the Night in unison. And it was so powerful. It was sung with such anger, with such rage. So I've written things like that, and then I've written things like Everyone Knows, which is very, very gentle, very gentle. So there is no Peggy Seeger brand. That's one of the reasons why being a good singer and not seeking publicity, working always in the grassroots, which is the strongest place to be, because then you can last for decades, which I have, rather than being cut down by the next one who wants their 15 minutes, or by some media person who wants to say this or that against you. Being in the public eye, I can think of nothing worse. And I think grassroots has kept me going. And I can still sing most of my songs unaccompanied because they're good tunes, good words. So the Ballad of Springhill was my first attempt at a song that lasted, and now it's the anthem of the little town of Springhill. Yeah, they sing it in school. The guy who was mentioned in it, I'm trying to remember his name. I forget things so easily, and I shouldn't forget his name. He's a wonderful man. The one who kept the 8 miners going, 12 miners going for 8 days by singing. 3 days passed and the lamps gave out and what was his name? He up and said, there's no more water nor light nor bread, so we'll live on songs and hope instead. Wow. And he's a fantastic man. I met him years on. So, as I say, if you only make up songs to your comfort zone, which is what a lot of singers do, and it's a natural thing to do, it can be both a strength and a weakness. Because then when you depart from it, as Bob Dylan did with going electric, then people will take you to task. But nobody's ever taken me to task. I'm writing wedge songs now. How I Long for Peace and Lubrication. Lubrication is your example for that on Final Farewell, First Farewell. People think it's about one thing at the beginning, like the thin end of a wedge, so they keep listening. And then it turns out to be something very big. By the end.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it does it in, I think, three verses. When you're on stage and you say, I'm going to sing a song about lubrication, and people begin to titter and look embarrassed. and it's really a song about something totally different, as they discover in the end. So that's mostly what I'm doing now. But if I have to, not have to, I would like to thank so many of the members of the audience who've stayed with me over 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I still get a lot of email, Facebook, Instagram from them. I get letters, and I really, really appreciate that. They have the staying power that I hope I have had, and that I hope and that I know that folk music has had, and that I hope my songs will have. I also would like to thank people like yourself who bother to listen to the songs and then give me a decent amount of time to talk about it. And then, of course, the people who have been most instrumental in my life. My mother, who's a modernist composer who is now getting a lot of attention, Ruth Crawford Seeger. She died at 53 before anybody knew about her. And if she had been a man, she would have been known by that time. But a number of people have said that. So there was my mother, my brother Pete, who I owe a huge amount to. My brother Mike, my comradeship of so many years, and instrumental comrade to the people like Leadbelly, who put up with an awful lot of racism when he was actually traveling with John Lomax. From the people who in the past have made up all the songs that I just love to sing. And of course, Ewan MacColl, because without him, I would not have gotten as far as I have. And I'd never be, I think, as good a songwriter as I hope I am without Ewan MacColl. I would not have been. Bringing theatre work into it and understanding how the songs and the tolerance of an audience who have to sit through 50 minutes or an hour and then another hour, how making songs of different sorts will keep you there in your seat, because you never know what's going to come next. And even though the songs of Leonard Cohen may be absolutely fantastic, and I love his songs, but after 4 or 5 of them I'm falling asleep because of the singing style. That was never my problem with Eric Bogle, because his words were so interesting, and he got through a song quite briskly.
That was folk music icon Peggy Seeger. To check out upcoming music work by Peggy, head to her website at peggyseeger.com. Remember to share this show with other music fans, and if you really enjoyed this edition, let us know. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Vinyl Vibes, and to all you music lovers out there, stay groovy.